Yeah, good everybody. Farmer Wade here for Billboard Battalion. We're coming to you today from downtown Coyuga in north central Victoria. Today is Tuesday, the 1st of July 2024. So we're only a few days away from the final push into Canberra for the procession that Jody Lowe has organised in conjunction um, with other people to bring some new paperwork down. Excuse me, to present to government or to the High Court or to others there. So Jackie Dundee has been working with Jody to put this stuff together, or she's put it together, and Jody's put the procession together. So we just thought we might have a bit of a talk. We've been Billboard Battalion will be taking part in the Victorian leg to Canberra, which starts on Friday. So we just thought we might clear up from a few people who have been asking us questions about the itinerary and where to stay and where not to stay. So I thought, well, what better idea than to get things directly from the horse's mouth? So we'll welcome Jody Lowe to the program. And Jody might give us a bit of a brief outline how things have gone so far and what it's about, and what people can expect and where the staying is. And you've got different websites and things like that, Jody, with that information, yeah?
Yeah, mate. It's we kicked it off last Friday, I think it was. 2 days all blend into one. Last Thursday, sorry. So we the backstory is about three or 4 weeks ago, I was listening to the freedom movement. Pick its eyeballs out of itself as usual, sort of saying we need to do something. What do we do? And everyone was sort of tripping over each other, trying to work out what we agree on. That's why I, like you, just do my own thing. I was listening to a bloke say that he was coming over from South Australia to host an event or host a bit of a thing that in Canberra about the 125th year anniversary of the Constitution signing. Jackie Dundee popped up and she was promoting Dr. Beverly Pearce and her sister Valerie Pearce's High Court appeal about the Constitution, the constitutional breaches for our rights around the COVID eras, about the medical mispractice of APRA, basically holding a gun to the heads of the doctors and saying you will do it this way, or you won't do business at all. And that sparked my interest to donate some money, because she'd had $60,000 worth of costs awarded against her, Dr. Beverly Pearce, and she had to come up with that before she could get into her appeal, as well as have the High Court actually hear it, because a lot of the time they're turning the back on these constitutional matters, the same as Rod Cullerton, who was appealing under a similar framework and similar section of the Constitution. So Jackie had been working with some of the constitutional gurus in the background to put together a covenant, the Solemn League of Covenant document that was basically, one last-ditch attempt at putting them on notice to say, we're done. We know that we know now. Here are our matters. Swear your oath to the people through that Constitution as it was supposed to be intended in 1901. And as is written in the preamble of our Constitution, or we'll fundamentally understand that there is no separation of powers between the judicial, executive, and the legislative branches of our government that sit below us as we people, right?
Yep.
So I thought, well, let's leverage all of them together. The movement hasn't done anything for a while. I've been teasing it, calling it the Ment, because it calls itself a movement, but we don't move often. We sit around watching videos and shows a lot. So I came up with the Freedom Unites Cairns to Canberra parade, where we would be collecting signatures, collecting donations, raising awareness all the way down the coast, all the way to. Now, look, personally, I would have preferred to go to Melbourne. I after this, I want everybody to turn their back on Canberra and realise that it's basically the corporate headquarters where the CEO of the Commonwealth of Australia Proprietary Limited lives. But I think people needed a bit of closure after Epic, with all the drama that went down with Epic. I think people needed a bit of closure, so we've agreed to go to Canberra. And look, to be honest, the FUC MP just didn't sound as good as the FUC CP. So yeah, we kicked off the Queensland leg. We made the decision to break it in half. It was going to be a 5 or 6 day straight event, but we didn't want everybody struggling at the moment. Everyone wants to be able to take part. So we split the rally in half and basically went sort of Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and next week it'll be Thursday, RV, Friday, Saturday, Sunday for the New South Wales leg. We completed the Queensland leg from Cairns all the way down to Laidley, next to Toowoomba. A couple of overnight stays. We raised over $11,000 in cash for Dr. Beverly. Certainly gave out a lot of information. We raised over $4,000 to pay for all of the accommodation, fuel vouchers, and all the food for the 3 nights that we stayed up in Bluewater, north of Townsville, Rockhampton, Capricorn Caves, and down to Laidley at the showgrounds there. So thank you so much to all of the support and sponsors. I think we would have had over 100 cars in the rally take part because the premise is 10Ks, 100Ks, 1,000Ks. You can take part for as much and as little as you can afford, for as much as little time as you have, and basically give every person every option of how to chip in, take part, and make this an organic sort of growth. So that's where we're up to at the moment, mate. I've come home for a couple of days rest with the family while I'm waiting to kick off again on Thursday night.
So you will be taking part in the next leg to Canberra. You'll be in Canberra on the Saturday, Jody. What's your plan there? You'll be there for the 2 days or the weekend, or what are your plans at that point?
So Friday morning, the legs kick off. One leg kicks off from the Yadala Pie Shop, just south of the Gold Coast, and it'll trundle down the coast road, picking up people on its way down there. It's got a few stops listed in our flyers on our page, the FUCCP Facebook page. But it'll trundle its way down there and then go across to meet us at Singleton. We'll start at Toowoomba and we'll head our way down the inland road, stopping for lunch at Armidale, and then on through Tamworth and down to the Cully Hotel. So the Caledonian Hotel is a pretty famous hotel. It was pretty instrumental in the fight back against the council for staying open and all the things that it sort of pushed back on. So it's a pretty good place to have a rally, meet up. And so that'll be Friday the 4th down at the Cully Hotel. We'll camp at the Singleton Showgrounds. And then the next morning we wander our way through the back suburbs, the western suburbs of Sydney, handing out flyers, picking up signed covenants, looking to raise as much awareness visually as we can on our way down to Pheasant's Nest, where we will stop for a break, pick up everybody from the from the Sydney areas, from Wollongong and such, and we'll head over to Canberra and get to Canberra on Saturday the 5th about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, camping at the Southside Village Park with a big feed and entertainment at the tavern that's on the side of that Southside Village, Marota or something. Doesn't matter. It's in the page. It's in the FUCCP page. But yeah, we'll have again camping and food will be paid for by the sponsors of the tour. So yeah, we've got fuel vouchers. We've been giving out plenty of fuel vouchers. We gave out about $600, $700 worth of fuel vouchers to people who wanted to take part but couldn't self-fund. We've got another $500 worth of vouchers sitting there already. We've managed to steer a bit of money over to the South Australian leg that took off. They'd already planned to go a couple of days early, so they arrived in Canberra today, I believe. The Victorian leg kicks off. We haven't had much luck trying to get any of the main media outlets for this, for the mainstream social media. White Rabbit and such haven't had any interest in picking it up to try and get it and promote it. So we're lagging a bit on our Victorian leg, trying to get the numbers to go from there. But they'll go up on Friday the 4th to meet at Albury on the border there, and they'll wait there for a couple of hours for all of the stragglers to come together. Head up to Wagga Wagga. They'll camp overnight at Wagga Wagga together, and then on Saturday they'll wander over to Canberra, and they'll get there earlier than us. But Sunday, once we're all together, we're going to have a few events during the day. I'm just waiting for the girls to finalise what we're actually going to do. But the main thing that we will do in the morning we'll run a grand Peter and Donna from the Corruption Whistleblower newspaper will run a grand jury indictment at Magna Carta Park, I believe it is, and that'll be something interesting, something new, and we'll enjoy that. Plus, I think there'll be some other little things that some of the groups do with the Governor General's house and different things. But the people for the most part, from what I've heard, 90% intend to go home and get home and get back ready for work after the Sunday. So there is a few that'll be staying through, waiting till the Parliament sits. I think maybe on the 9th or 10th, or at least waiting until the 9th, which is the anniversary date of the 125th anniversary. So I know that there's some moves from Melbourne people that other groups will be coming up later in that week to join up with the people that are still left there from this weekend. So yeah, mate, all in all, just a fundraising exercise, just an awareness exercise, just a one last chance to prove to these, to all the people out there that believe that there is 100% chance that the Constitution still exists and still has its power and still can be used as a tool to save the people from the tyranny that we're seeing in this country. So I'm happy to give them one last public chance with all eyes on it, and then from there, like I said, we'll have to realise that no paperwork, no government issued documents are going to do much for us, and it's just we the people standing side by side, shoulder to shoulder, saying we've had enough of this bullshit is the only thing that's really going to bring it unstuck, I guess.
So first things first, this grand jury, have you ever taken part in one of them, Jody, or what does that look like?
No, it's something that I've not taken part in at all. I've not even really seen one. It's the same as the description that I've been getting from like the common law sheriff, WA common law sheriffs with Alan Wallace, and that is basically they set it up like the courts of old, the common law courts of old, where we the people used to be the judge, the judge of our own people. We were the ones that made the decision of our common folk.
Of your peers, yeah, a court of your peers.
Court of your peers, right? And so I believe it's sort of set up along those lines that the allegations that are against the people that will be listed in the indictment will be put forward, all of the evidence provided, and then the jury of the peers will make the decision on what that looks like. Now, what weight it carries, obviously, is none. None in their mainstream. It carries significant, just like the covenant, it carries significant weight if the system is working well, and national bodies will be notified of it as well. And all of the signing that we're getting, like I put through over 100, I've put through over 500 signed copies today. But the intent is it's a legal document, right? So you're supposed to sign it, get two witnesses, date it, and then email it off to the address that's in the post where you can where you can download the PDF from. Because if the document, if a legal document has got its weight, it doesn't gain weight by having hundreds of people do it. You know what I mean? Like if it's a legal document that is true in law, then it has its weight with one person signing it. The intent is to get more and more people just aware, firstly, of the Constitution. Like I would say 99% of this country have no idea what the Constitution is, how it works, what it's for. And I say that with great confidence, because 1 year ago I just thought another document full of rules that I had to follow. Hence, it was on my list of things never to read because I couldn't give two shits about them telling me what to do. And once I started realising that it technically is the only document that is supposed to be recognised by our Parliament, as we the people gave it power, gave them the power to govern the day-to-day affairs of our country with it. It's been good for me to learn it as I travel around talking to people in a language that is a bit more common tongue to the average person. And then, if people want to step up the argument a little bit, I can still go with them. Go with them on the Constitution, the common law sort of thing, to be able to, make sure that we don't sound like conspiracy theorists, as the government would love to, paint us.
Yeah. So I think, that we've, you've been involved in this a long time. I've been involved in this for a long time. I think that given what we've seen so far over the time, and I do want to just get back and touch on what we do with papers or whatever, that what is the actual plan in Canberra and who these papers go to and so on. But I think it's fair to say that over quite a long time now, most of the people that I know wouldn't have a clue what the Constitution's about, or wouldn't really give a stuff. They couldn't care less. And I think the biggest issue is that the people in the government care even less. Like, they know what it's about, and they've taken very specific actions to basically kill it. And I think that with the many things that I speak about, Jody, the power of the Constitution is only as strong as the actual physical enforcement behind it. And if you don't have physical enforcement, if the people who are supposedly using the Constitution, if they're the ones who are actually trying to kill it, then I don't see, and I know there's a number of people who talk about jurisdiction and about things under the law, within jurisdiction of the Constitution, that sort of thing. But I sort of reckon they're a little bit, I'm not going to say off with the fairies, but I think you've got to understand that if you don't have some sort of enforcement behind the law, then there is no law. So your Constitution is dead. And, they talk about jurisdiction. Well, that died a long time ago, unless we do something very, very dramatic to change it back.
Yeah, I was probably of a similar opinion, but the more I learn about it, what I've found is the more useful of a tool it is to actually bring mainstream people on board with us as we grow our numbers, exponentially to take on this beast, right? Everyone can stand there and say, the UN shouldn't be doing this and the World Health Organization shouldn't be doing that, and we say why, and people say why? What do you mean? Like, what's the problem with it? And well, then if you actually start reading like Section 44 of the Constitution, you can actually put some weight behind it, to say, well, this is the way that it's supposed to be, right? Because this is why it's not working. Not just saying it shouldn't work, right? And it's the same with their referendums. Once I sort of understood Section 128 to sort of understand what the referendum part is for, what are they trying to achieve, and then you start listening to high court rulings of the past where you might have an angle on it. Through Section 109, and even onto the councillors when I'm challenging them about their head of power from Section 51. Now, I wouldn't have been able to do that a year ago, and I still only read, minorities in each of those pieces of that legislation because it isn't a single rule for each one. But what we have to do is we have to be able to know all of the enemy's tactics, and we have to know all of the things that they are doing fraudulently to be able to show the people of all walks of life that they are deliberately doing this fraudulent shit, because it's written right there in black and white that if that document had any weight as it should, then it would be easy to see for these people. So that's probably been the biggest thing that I've been able to prove lately, is actually by not just saying, oh, the Constitution's dead, and not having an argument why, is actually being able to show what sections are dead in relation to what parts, because that's made a big difference to getting the mainstream people who believe that we've been fed bullshit, that we're conspiracy theorists and anti-vaxxers and transphobes and all the names that the government likes to make up about us. Well, it makes for a much greater weighted argument, when I can actually put forward points to people to say, okay, well, if you want to stay in the system and you think the system's okay, then tell me what you think of Section 2 of the Local Government Act that says that they are a non-corporate body with an ABN trading in GST, when the Corporations Act should be how they rule, but they sidestep it after two failed referendums under Section 128, where we said we didn't want one. And that conversation makes people go, huh. So it's all good to say there shouldn't be a council, shouldn't be a local council. Oh, it should be a local council. And then, but if you actually can back it up with a bit of research and information to the point where people sort of go, it's been a useful tool for me. So whether it works or it doesn't, it is supposed to be the law of the land that was promised to us to be the protector of the people's rights through the power given to us by the monarch, and the Governor General was supposed to be the representative of the Crown itself, and has had its power taken completely off it in 1986 Australian Act, and subsequent things before that with the Unijoid and the Lima Declaration. So, will the piece of paper work for the Covenant make a difference? Possibly not. But the more avenues we can tick off, I guess, internationally to say we have done and followed all of the lawful due processes and the rights that we have as the people of the Commonwealth, to question why and how our rights are being thrown out the window, the more obvious it is to the people that remedy is not up the chain begging the government for, please, sir, can I have some more? It will take shoulder to shoulder rejection of all things that they do.
Yeah, which is pretty well where I see it. We've got some pretty serious stuff happening within the next few weeks that I think we will see governments, if we don't pull out of the international health regulations, I think we're going to see that the government will usurp power to the WHO, totally overriding our constitution, overriding everything, in fact. But so you've come into this with Jackie Dundee. She's done a huge amount of work on the legalities of it. So what's the plan once everybody actually hits Canberra on the Saturday? Or is there a plan for Sunday to do something with this paperwork, all these covenant documents that have been signed? Is there what's the plan to actually happen from that point on? What's the strategy?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. We'll be doing the grand jury indictment on the Sunday, and there'll be a bit of other running and fluffing. Jackie will be putting all the documents together. I put about 500 onto a stick today, so that will be just sort of correlating, pulling all that data together. The actual run from Cairns to Canberra, like I said, the Cairns to Canberra part of it serves its purpose more as a starting point for conversation. Well, I mean, the group, for example, I think I did 4 lives on the way down. For greater than 100,000 views. The group's got 6,900 people in it. There's tens of thousands of shares around the countryside talking to people. We've been on the truckers, on the radio down with the trucks, on Channel 40, telling them to man up and write for FU-CCP on their windscreens to, make sure that it's a talking point all the way up and down the coastline, that we've had enough of tax on tax on tax. We've had enough of the housing crisis, which is only made possible by, mass immigration, well over the mark of what we need. The lack of trades caused by, excessive bullshit university courses that don't support anything in this country, that we don't make anything anymore. The sale of our resources and assets, we're 86% foreign-owned minerals and resources. Letting the things like the UN Disaster Risk Reduction Plan and the Sendai Framework get signed off in Japan last year on our behalf, which makes managed retreat possible for all of these properties along the coastlines. Continual geoengineering. If people haven't sort of woken up to what's going on with it by now, will they ever? But again, the 1967 Rainmaking Control Act shows us that nearly 60 years ago, they officially put it in our legislation that they start playing with the weather. 1973's Lima Declaration was the kickoff of selling off all of our manufacturing. Now this country is really known for nothing other than a trading spot of organic material. So things that grow organically in cows and sheep, or tearing out our minerals and resources out of the ground, or selling off our water and gas, or giving our gas away for free. So, our dollar is devaluing rapidly. They're taking the gold off the back of our dollar. Everyone is in a cost of living crisis, while the government tells us, gaslights us into saying, no, it's all under control. Inflation is down to 4.5%. Fuel has stayed ridiculously high when it was supposedly only that way because of the COVID spike, and it's never come back down, and now looks to go up again as the so-called Prime Minister, so-called President of Peace, has bombed his way to a Nobel Prize. And that's going to cause more strain on the international, oil market, allegedly. So, we can sit around and wait all they want. I've been telling people for a fair while now that I've watched all the stories of, I've seen just as many Rumble videos as everybody else with the flame signal on either side of Intel, where something's coming in from the warriors in the, white hats and all that sort of shit. And I said, great, I'll be out on the battlefield swinging my sword for my family, for my country. And if Jesus shows up or if the white hats show up, then I'll welcome them to the fight. But I will not be sitting around any longer waiting for someone to come save it, because we have 5 years has went like that since COVID, and 5 more years will go like that till the 2030 agenda reaches its new world order deadline. And by then, you will own nothing and you will be happy, is a phrase that will be genuinely true, because they couldn't fit it on the flyer, but the piece in between is because we're going to crush and take every single thing away from you to the point where you are so starved, so broke, so cold and so shelterless that you will, whatever we offer you in a Stockholm syndrome type world, you'll be so proud to be our captor, because we will be the ones that save you. And that's the way this country runs at the moment. Middle class is only possible by government funding.
Yeah. And look, that's the whole thing. I mean, for somebody to sit up there, and we talk about a lot, a lot of these things when we do presentations about the likes of Schwab saying you'll own nothing, you'll be happy. And people go, who the hell's Klaus Schwab? So that's one scary thing that people, we don't get through the likes of the media and our politicians and so on about who they are. What he means to say is you'll own nothing and most likely be dead, or you'll be so squashed down that at the point of a gun, or for half a cup of rice for the week, you'll definitely say, I'm so happy just to try and get that. And we see that happen in China all the time. But, you talked about the white hats there before, Jody. And I can remember when I first started Billboard Battalion, I got a lot of ex-service people who were supporting us. And if you said anything about the white hats, they sort of start jumping up and down and chucking a bit of a spaz, the white hats are sitting off the coast and they're up in Queensland, and there's a battle group waiting out in the Pacific and all this sort of stuff like that. And some of these blokes literally served under Bosey himself personally, so wouldn't hear anything about it. So what I used to say in 2022 was, look, I don't know if the white hats are real or not, but, this is our country. I'm going to war. I'm taking as many people into battle. And if we hear the bugles coming across the hills and the cavalry turns up, bring the hardware, bring the firepower, let's do this. But, step up and be with us. But we're in this fight to save Australia right now. We're not waiting for anybody else to come. And I think that created a lot of confusion and apathy in so many people when they thought, the white hats are coming and the US is going to do this and all that sort of thing. I think a lot of people just fell into a false sense of security. And I think now many of the people I know that were telling me this back then, with all this stuff about Q and all these riddles and God knows what, I think a lot of those people have started to wake up a bit and go, deadline after deadline has passed. We didn't see one white hat. We just saw another shovel full of crap. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's look, people need hopium to sort of to keep going. But the point of a psyop is to do exactly that. The person that makes the psyop just creates two sides out of an issue that they have no interest in being part in, and let the people argue over the side. There's 3,000 religions out there that spend more time criticizing each other's religion than actually fighting on the common enemy, which is the evil that they all believe exists. Look, don't get me wrong. I was watching it. I used to listen to a fair bit of it just to keep up with it. I probably stopped when Derek Johnson come along. That was 2 years ago. Derek Johnson and Guru said that they had They were receiving press passes. Well, Derek Johnson was telling Guru that they were going to get press passes to go to Guantanamo Bay and watch the executions on behalf of the Australian people and be able to be news reporters on it. And I had, but at the time, I put away, all my food, all my water, and everything because this big outage was coming. And 2 years later, I've thrown out more food than most people have saved in that time. It's been that long. It's got mold on it, and I'm proud to know that I've always got 6 months of everything stored away, because I'm going to live my life like that forever from now on, because the coercion ability comes when you know that you have to go begging for something because you can't last more than 2 weeks, without someone giving you a handout, right? And that's what they want from this world. They want us to be completely and utterly subservient to it. I've got friends that are on NDIS. If they earn $1, NDIS takes $1 off them instantly. So there's no reward even for people with handicapped children, special needs children that are at home. There's no reward for them to actually want to get up and try and go and work a job in their spare time, because the system just wants to keep them completely in their control, so that they just always say thank you. And I want people to think about that as well, right? Middle class should mean you should not need taxpayer-funded handouts, because remember, the government doesn't have any money; it just has your money, right? So, they've run up over $1.5 trillion worth of debt in your name, which is greater than $40,000 per person. So, an average five-person household has been, you can add an extra $200,000 in tax that you're going to have to pay back over the next 20 years, because the government's decided to continue to call middle class while they fund it with rent assist and power bill assists and family tax A and family tax B and Medicare assistance and all of the things that the government funds to make you a middle class family. Well, that's not middle class. That's low class, low income, topped up by other people's taxes, which is pretty close to socialism as it gets, right? It's the first step towards full communism.
Well, I think that people need to have a bit of a look at what's happening in terms of they talk about the cost of living crisis and the housing crisis, and I think we're seeing now the federal government they're starting to give big breaks and relief to multinational corporates who build these massive, great big housing estates or buildings on a build to rent. So the plan is that no one will own a house, and when we see this policy in conjunction with everything they're doing to make it unviable to own a house, unviable to own a piece of land with a business, or unviable to own a farm with everything that's happening to our farmland, you can certainly see that the government is absolutely working on the way to give Klaus Schwab what he wants, where he says no one will own anything, because I think a lot of people, when they first heard that, and I think for a lot of people, the first time they ever heard of the World Economic Forum or Klaus Schwab was when he released the book, COVID-19, The Great Reset. And I think that was the first time that many people ever saw or heard of him. And when he says you will own nothing, you can see very clearly now that our government is working for the World Economic Forum and the United Nations and the World Health Organization in making that reality. The policies and that they're bringing in.
The World Health Organization's got over 46 World Health Organization collaborating centres working in this country that nobody knows much about.
Yes, absolutely.
Working in parallel with things like our TGA, which is supposed to be our Therapeutic Goods Association. It's our equivalent of the FDA, who's supposed to be the regulator. And here we have this international body, which is the largest private funder of it is Bill Gates. And of all the funds that are put into the World Health Organization, there's like a 70% of them are, I can't remember the exact terminology that Deborah Ewell and them told me, but it's basically if they donate $100 million, they say that 70 million of them is they get to choose what that is invested in. So, even though it's even worse than the funding. It's funding with him telling them how they'll spend it. So he's the biggest funder of the whole thing, and he also gets to tell them how they'll spend their money and what research they'll do, which is what led to the mRNA vaccinations. The ABC. One of the ABC reporters reached out to me, asked me for an interview about the FUCCP parade, and I said, I sort of sat back and said, "Hey, love, I don't know who gave you my name or number or whatever it is, but they gave you a bit of a bum steer because you'll go and do some homework on the sort of content that I post because you'll never work in mainstream media again if you actually gave me a fair interview." And I was sort of politely saying, go away. And then she came back and sort of said, no, we understand. We see you regaining traction and getting you growing numbers. And, we want to know what's upsetting the Australian people. And I said, well, if I'm honest, you and your people have done nothing but use taxpayers' money to run a propaganda campaign in the mainstream media against the people of this country that would question anything from the government. If we said no to the Voice, we were racist. If we don't like medicating 5-year-old kids that wore their sister's dress, or putting kitty litters in toilets, we are transphobes. If we questioned mRNA technology getting rolled out that's quickly under emergency use authorization, we were anti-vaxxers. If we question anything about the government, we're conspiracy theorists. If we push back and start learning common law and constitution, we are now classified as domestic terrorists, even though the Australian Federal Police number 1 and 2 of the list of 14 things that they look out for, apparently their big problems are hate speech and anti-Semitism. And then my wife tells me, just reads out an article talking about the massive funding that the government has just released for all of the Muslim hate crime out there. So they're going to be fortifying the Muslim religion, and the respect for them in the community and education for the people of this country about the Muslim, because of the extreme Muslim hate. So it's divisive by nature. It's all by design, and it's
yep.
And it's the de-whitening of the Christian faith-based democratic world that we have here. Now, that's not to say it from a racist point of view, but that's what it is, right? You can't have a country clearly identified in all the things that we talk about in this country as Christian faith-based, but not allowed to teach any religion or anything such at school anymore. And yet we have multicultural days all day, every day. We have a month. We have one day for Anzac Day, and we have a month for Pride. It tells you all you need to know. I mean, Australia Day is a laughing joke. The further you go back into history, as I've done, the flag that sits on your right shoulder there, the more I find out about their lies, even just with our the blue corporate flag, and the Australia Day was on. In 1916, 1917, 1918 was on the last day of July, was on the last Friday of July as a fundraiser for the women and broken men, the men that were broken, came back from war, and the women that were left husbandless when the country didn't support them. Yet they continue to drag it back to, the 26th of January, which is, a known day of disappointment for the Indigenous, but worse still, on 1910 was when we were forced, on 26th of January 1910 is when we were forced to sign the Hague Treaty, which pushed us into usufruct paying off the debts of the British back to the Americans that came to tell us that we had to pay. 1946 is the national, 26th of January 1946 is the National Citizens Act Day, where they start their process of changing us from British subjects over to Australian citizens, and that's where the shit fuckery really starts. They really start ramping it up with the changing of our legislation, the changing of our names, and moving all things around in there. They've been attacking us with paperwork from the day go, incarcerating us in this open air prison, and we've been asleep at the wheel.
Oh, without any doubt. I mean, the amount of people I talk to, and in particular in the agricultural sector, to try and get farmers to actually see what's happening and actually wake up, that's a mammoth task. So many people who have just believed that if you work hard and you're honest and you do the right thing, then your government will look after you. These people don't get it. You know, when you talk about before, Jody, you're talking about 26th, you know, and we see some, and a reasonably small handful, I think, of Aboriginal people talk about that as, in fact, Invasion Day. Well, Invasion Day is now. The real go of Invasion Day is the 19th of July this year. That's when you lose everything that you have. That's when the real invasion of Australia happens. And we're seeing right now the Labor Party and the Greens in Canberra are the ones who have the power to sign the thing and stop it. So they obviously have no interest. So therefore, that's why we've got to push back and put as much enormous pressure on them as we possibly can, because people are about to get the massive big shock of their life if this thing goes through.
Yeah, and again, that's what I said. I'll take any opportunity I can to, get the eyes on us. When we're driving down the coast the other day with 20 or 30 cars going through these towns and people are on the side of the road, sort of the further we got down, the more of a head start they have. That's why we gave the New South Wales people that extra week. Because between Melbourne and Sydney, let's get real, they've got 2/3 of the population within 6 hours of Canberra. If they can't quadruple what we managed to put together, and again, like I said, I did it in 2 weeks. A phone and a laptop and an idea in 2 weeks. We managed to, pull on the people's trust enough to do what we did. Right, massive funding for Dr. Beverly. Massive donations. Everywhere we went, we pulled up a Gympie the other day, and there was over 220 people there. For a lunch just to meet us when we got there. You're driving into massive amounts of people. Just all sitting there. I'm giving a speech on everything that's going on, and it's vibrant, it's energy, it's time. Nobody wants to wait 3 more years to end up the 126th time that Liberal or Labor has been in power, because that's all we've had. 126 times we've had Liberal or Labor swap back and forth the two heads of the same snake since Federation in 1901, and before that, there were the same three or four parties that were that were sort of fighting for power in the colonies against each other. Nothing much has changed. I mean, you can talk to the Derek Bollogs of the world, where he'll show you where the writs aren't being done and the voting is fraudulent. You can talk to the Wayne Blues of the world, where he'll tell you that the Constitution's been set up to fail from the get-go. You can talk to the Darren and Darryls from the Know Your Rights groups, and they'll tell you that the legal system is not right, because it's being used as a weapon against us instead of for us. I went to the two DES's anti-corruption academy training the other day, where they take you on a journey right back to 1890 and forward, through the David Walters Bill of Rights. I think that's 1867, but they take you right through all the legislation and show you where all the documentation is being fraudulently signed, incorrectly signed by the wrong people, deliberately, right? Because you can just find the breadcrumbs. They'll take you on a breadcrumb journey where you can sort of go, holy shit, like it's been right there in front of our faces the entire time. And so that's why it is important. Like I said, it is important for me to at least be able to understand Constitution, Acts, statutes, and laws to a degree where I can sort of not speak French, but understand when people are trying to one up me with their fancy terminology. Like the council come back with a letter. I've stopped paying rates until they can ensure me that it's not a fraudulent process of taking part, because the money that we're paying towards those some of those fees are going overseas to wars that have been that have been classified as war crimes. So we're potentially paying taxes towards something that is a war crime. So I've asked them a fair few questions, and mostly about where they get their power from, their head of power from Section 51 after that failed referendum. And they come back with, the Local Government Act and the Queensland legislation and such. And so then you go and have a look at the Queensland Constitution, and its signet of the Queensland Treasury sits on top of the New South Wales Constitution of 1855, yet ours was only written in 1867. So they make mistakes that are in plain sight. Well, I don't know whether they do it on purpose, but they make mistakes that are in plain sight all over the place, to prove that they have no power. That they've been doing exactly what the book 1984. Winston is the man in the book 1984. His job is to take the papers of old and change them so that people go back looking through the papers. They go, oh, I'm sure it said this, but they've been changed, right? And that's what they're doing. They're removing the paper copies to everything. That's hence the titles, getting rid of the paper titles for your property, and they are replacing everything with digital. Now my wife just found out that they've pretty much now got you completely cornered in the States now with digital ID. You will not be able to access any governmental service without your digital ID, even though they say it is mandatory. Sure, it's mandatory, but you can't do anything without having it. Recognise that? Voluntary, yeah. Sorry, sure. It's voluntary, and it's not mandatory, not mandated. But the same as the vaccination, where they say, oh, it's not mandated. You can choose to not have it, which we did, but you just won't have a job or won't be able to go to town or won't be able to go to pubs, clubs, whatever. That's the same story as this. So they've got in Queensland already QGov. QGov is the little brother of MyGov, the digital apps. Federal passed the digital ID, but said that it will not be made mandatory. And yet I can't get a medical record sent to me for my job, for my employer, unless I have a digital ID. And so they say, oh, no, well, it's not us, the government, that's making it mandatory, just that company is. And I've talked to One Nation's barrister, Hugh, and I put it to him about the Queensland High Court case 2015 Queensland Rail under Section 109. And he said, yep, I agree. You'd have a good case to it, but you'd have to go through the first level of Fair Work if you refuse to do it. And Fair Work would say, well, there's nothing unfair in this modern day and age of them asking you to have a digital ID. You have digital everything else. So you'd have to wait and appeal and then go to the next level of court and bring that High Court ruling forward as precedence. And he said, who's going to be willing to do that for a mining job? And I said, well, that's the job of the fucking union, but they're like the rest of them, are completely asleep at the wheel and taking no responsibility for they're making sure that their workers don't have cold eggs at the camps. It's about as influential as they are these days, while they sell out all of the country's conditions of the working men until there'll be nothing left.
Well, I think that the term the unions are asleep at the wheel. I don't subscribe to that. I think that the union leadership is just another level of corruption, where you see people who are supposed to be representing a group or their members or whatever it is you want to call it, they're just on the take. They're just kissing backsides of stinking politicians to get their little junkets, their little nose in the trough, their little handout, their little, oh, listen, mate, I'll get you in on a good deal, or you do that and we'll give you a job as a politician another couple of years. They're not, what we've seen from the unions, and I haven't had a lot to do with them, but when I did back in the days of BLF, it was rotten to the core. And I've spoken to some of the union people now within the last few years about doing things to support their members. They don't want to know about it. If there's anything you want to do to get them to speak up for their members, hell no, they do not want to know about it. And I can tell you 100,000 examples. So we've got the same thing going on across the board.
But this is what I said. Like, there's some people from the union telling me the other day that, it's not them, it's rah rah. And I'm like, what a load of shit. Imagine the Eureka Stockade saying, hang on, guys, we can't go ahead yet because we're just waiting for a Section 52 to be filled out so that we've got the right to assemble and peacefully protest. I mean, I said the numbers of what you've had in the union, nothing. It's never been about the paperwork. It's never been about permission. It's never been about some fat cat fuckwit sitting up in fucking Brisbane talking on behalf of the Queensland mining unions, right? And I said it's about the people. It's been about our numbers. They're not scared of the union president that sits in the city. They're scared that the 5,000 members on a handful of mine sites will stop producing the fucking coal that makes them rich with the royalties and taxes that they take out of the people and the wages and the sale of the coal. So I said you don't need someone to stand up for you. I mean, I went to the farmer Reckless Renewables rally. Me and you met there last year in February, and I went dressed in my full kit for mining outfit, and everyone was like, "What are you doing here?" Like that, and I'm like, "Well, these fucking renewables are trying to take out the mining industry, you fuckwits. It's not just about fucking bald eagles running into fucking windmills." And so I was up the union then saying, "Where are you?" I mean, I was up in the hills with Steve Nowakowski at one of the windmill farms up here at Lotus Creek the other day, watching $1.2 billion worth of Chinese steel get stood on beautiful mountaintop ranges that they had pushed with bulldozers 60 metre wide for 20 kilometres long straight through the middle of koala habitat to stand 42 towers of windmill to replace their thermal coal industry. And where are the thermal coal miners? They're on the piss with the boys, And I'm like, fuck me. Where's the union? Dead silent, mate. Dead silent.
So, and this is a big thing. Like this renewable energy crap, it's destroying our industries. It's destroying Australia's energy security. The mining industry is a big target and victim of it, as is the agricultural industry. And like here in Victoria, and as you know, Jody, Billboard Battalion covers a lot of the stuff about renewables right across Australia. And here in Victoria, we're seeing now farms where if their next door neighbour puts up windmills, then there is a 1.5 kilometre exclusion zone goes into the next door neighbour's place where they can't do certain things with their land. We're seeing underneath now these wind turbines and around this renewable energy crap, your National Livestock Declaration has a section now to say, have these animals been grazing near renewable energies? Because we know that the windmills and that are falling to pieces. The solar panels have got crap coming off from everywhere, microplastics and so on. So, the impact on agriculture is absolutely monstrous. It's huge. So, we're just seeing the whole thing, these renewable everything is destroying everything in Australia that matters so
well, that
crucially.
Just, like, where are the greenies? Like, where are the greenies and where are the studies? I mean, like they're putting 42 towers up in that one hill. There's no drainage. There's no catchment area. There's no swales for the runoff. There's no collection of topsoil into a pile, and then once the road's built, put it back on top. They literally just bulldozed and fast tracked all of the environmental protections that are in place. I mean, I've worked in mining my whole life, which is bad. It is bad for the environment. But I've done surface projects where I've been the surface coordinator of these projects, and the level of oversight from the environmental mobs is unbelievable. I mean, the compaction tests, the soil tests, the runoff tests, the topsoil re-establishment, the regrassing and seeding that we have to do if you move some dirt, right? I was part of a project building a 1 in 100 year floodplain to protect the mine from the river, and what they had to do was unbelievable. We missed our turn off into a T intersection by 50 meters. They were straight onto us. We had to fill out a massive amount of paperwork and pay a fine because we turned off 50 meters outside of our zone. You had to have professionals go through all of the areas and make sure that any animals that were in an area that you were going to make a road was removed, like professionally removed at the expense of the people. These motherfuckers are up there just with bulldozers plowing straight through the fucking forest. I've never seen anything like it. And where are the greenies? None. There was barely a what you would classify as a greenie up there the other day. There was a couple of politicians, a couple of local farmers, a couple of people that are residents of the area, myself, up there protesting about it. There's 800 cubic meters of concrete per wind tower base up there. So 42 times 800 cubic meters, which if you look at concrete production is like number two on the list of things that we can change with climate change. It sits at about 8% of the CO emission, and yet here we are putting that leaching concrete in great big blocks. I think they said that was I think there's 25 house blocks worth of concrete, 25 homes worth of concrete built on top of a hill with no runoff. What do you reckon that's going to do to the animals and the local surroundings, and run out into the reef, with all of the vibrations, EMF frequencies and shit coming off those, off the windmills, and then the 66,000 volt cables, running through all of that farmland. Fucking madness.
So we've had a lot to do with the people who are protesting against this. We've had a lot to do with seeing endless presentations and footage of they're just bulldozing rainforest and the top of mountains and explosives. They're blowing her up. They've got dozers up there. They've got excavators. They're just flattening the whole thing. And it's interesting to note that in the catchment area for the Great Barrier Reef, there are many farmers now who are completely controlled with what they're allowed to grow, plant, what animals they're allowed to have on the joint, all that sort of stuff. And I was talking to someone just recently, and they were telling me that old mate had the tractor and might have gone and, from what I can understand, knocked out a little bit of I don't know, some old dead scrub or some crap like that, the sort of thing that's just a nuisance to everything. And apparently a fine turned up in the mail from drone footage of him knocking over a couple of old suckers. And these scumbags go and just knock the top off mountains, the whole thing. They just flatten the whole deal. I know years ago I was working, driving excavators and dozers up when we were doing the Sunday Creek Dam. And and we were putting a dam wall in there, a spillway and so on. And the forestry people were parading around there, looking out for I think they might have been I can't think of the name, stag ferns or something like that. That if you picked up one that had been knocked off a tree with a dozer or whatever, and you took it home, there's something like I don't know, maybe a $5,000 fine. But in the works, they'll just plough them into the ground, just pushing them over and the whole deal. So it is all totally wrong. And the ones that cop the most trouble are our farmers.
Oh, absolutely. And look, I mean, unfortunately, lessons are best learnt through the hip pocket. And the greatest thing that happened to this country, I believe, for the short term, is Albanese getting back in, purely because we talked about this the other day. I was like, the country has this feeling that if the politicians are doing a bad job, if they can change the leaders, change the party, that means that they executed some form of political power by knocking Labor out. Now, they all wanted to lock Labor out, and they were all active trying to get anybody they could in there to knock him out. And when they didn't, and when he actually strengthened his lead in seats but lost his percentage of voting, a lot of this country stayed awake after the vote, which helps, because if Liberals had got in, they've got their own agenda. There's two heads of the same snake, but they are, they do run it at a different angle. But I think a large percentage of the population would have patted themselves on the back that they played some part in kicking Albanese out and went back to sleep. And instead they stayed activated. And that's why I was like, right, let's do this rally, right? Because we had 15 million views in the last 3 months on my channel alone. Just, little old me sitting here talking my shit on my whiteboards, doing my whiteboards and stuff, teaching people what in a layman's version, what I'm learning from the technical people. And I'm like, we got to go. Like, we've got to move. Like, we've got to go now, because there's 1.3 million people that woke up and said they're not going to take part in voting anymore because they're that disgruntled with the voting system that they went. And I can guarantee you there'd be 5 more million people that wouldn't take part if someone said tomorrow that they wouldn't get a fine. Fucking guarantee it. Wait, that'd be 5 million people that would just say there's no point because it's not going to change anything. It's just Liberal or Labor, rob Peter to pay Paul. Now, we don't want that, because if you ever read the Communist Manifesto of Karl Marx, you'll see, like I said, they are deliberately making us lose faith in democracy, whereas it's not democracy that necessarily we should be losing faith in. It's the fraudulent leadership that are deliberately not allowing it to do its job. But in saying that too,
Mm.
this country has turned into, we're so spoilt and so anti everything that nobody wants a middle anymore, right? Everybody wants to win. And nobody wants to listen to someone's side of the story, a little bit of the left and a little bit of the right, because the government, who has to control two things when you do popular politics, they have to control the education and the media. They're the only two things you have to control if you want to get away from land-based rights. You just have to talk popular things. We'll give, and then all you got to do that is control the media and control the school to make that continue, because you don't hear politicians saying, we won't be doing that because it's not constitutional under section this or that. It's always, it's all popular politics.
No.
So people,
it's whatever they can sell.
That's right.
Crap.
So that's all they've had to do, right? And that's why this rise of people like ourselves, in popularity. It's what I said to the ABC. I'm like, we don't need you. We don't need you anymore. Your show is now irrelevant. We get better views, and the people trust us more than they'll ever trust you, because we are real Aussies, and you are fake. You are fake journalists that report on whatever you're paid and allowed to talk about. So, thanks to the offer, but I said, well, you're welcome to come and join the parade. But if you come as a mainstream media person, we'll tell you to piss off. If you come as an Aussie and stand with us, you're welcome.
There's a hell of a lot we've got through tonight anyway, Jody. The main thing is that to promote the rally down to Canberra, there will be a Victorian contingency that's coming up. We'll obviously be taking part of that. Billboard Battalion will be taking part of that. We'll catch up with people at Albury. We'll come across from Echuca there. So we're just about done our hour, mate. You must be nearly time for smoko down your end.
I need my daughter running around getting her teeth done, so it's time to go and get her into bed. She's already running late. So thanks for the opportunity to come on and talk about it. And all the information's held in that Freedom Unites Cairns to Canberra Parade Facebook page. If you go up to the top of that page, you'll see featured and chats and files across the top. You scroll up on there. So all the flyers are in there, all the printables in there. They're all PDFs. They're all high quality. You can print them in black and white or otherwise to give out for information. The timetables of where we'll be stopping, where we're having lunch, where we're meeting up. We're all in there for the different legs down the coast, inland. The covenant is there to have a read of and try and understand. No, it's not spelt wrong. There's every word in there is spelt correctly. It's just in a language that we don't understand because it comes from, translate file documents and stuff like that. So save yourself the trouble with that. But look, take part. 10K, 100K, 1,000K. Throw $5 towards it. Come out to the side of the road. Wave a flag, whatever you've got. Give us some support. Realistically, we'd love to see. If we're going to stop at your place at Tamworth, we'd love you to drive an hour up the road. Meet us there. Travel down with the convoy with your car, fully decked out with FUCCP across the windscreen and the back window. So the cars passing us are like, what the hell is that? And then when we get to Tamworth, we'll pull in for 5 quick minutes, a hug and a handshake, pick up your paperwork, and we'll keep rolling on. If you can help make us have good pit stops, nice quick pit stops, we can get to their destinations. Because I think the first 2 days were 11 and a half hours on the road and 12 and a half hours on the road to get to our destinations. You got to keep rolling, kissing babies and doing what you do to sort of give the people as much time as you can. But the goal is awareness, and it doesn't have to be just us on the road. I expect by the time we get to Canberra, we'll have 60 or 70 cars in the convoy, which will be great. That's what we're hoping for, and we'll have over 100 people stay there the night of the Canberra, so that we've got over 100 for the grand jury indictment on the Sunday morning. We're not going anywhere near Parliament House. We're not doing anything that is against any of their mandates, so there is no reason for them to be acting the violent way that they do, shooting people with rubber bullets at the Shrine of Remembrance and using LRAD weaponry against the people at Parliament House. We'll be peaceful, we'll be lawful, we'll be independent, and we'll be away from any of their shit. We are still in the Lions Den going to Canberra, but it'll be probably the last time you see any of the freedom movement ever go there, because once we prove that they do not have care in the world about we the people, then we can start looking to unite in other ways. So thanks for your time, mate. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks very much, Jody, and we'll catch up with you in Canberra,
All right,
if not
mate.
before.